Zed is getting a huge buff this patch. Will he become OP tier again? On the other side, Nidalee gets an AD buff and AP nerf. Are we going to see Nidalee top lane with grasp? Lots and lots of changes this patch. Check out 1v9.gg, your best place for any League of Legends service. We provide the best accounts, coaches, and the best boosters. So let's hop in.
Starting with items and runes, Absorb Life is getting nerfed. Its sustain between levels 1 and 12 is decreased while it is buffed from level 13 to 18. Warmogs is getting nerfed too, by decreasing passive HP threshold from 1300 to 1500.
Aphelios got buffed in red, purple, and white weapons, which is gonna put him in a really good spot in the meta this patch. All 3 weapons got buffed in AD ratio, while base damage increased on his white and purple weapons.
Cho'Gath received scaling buffs with his Q damage increasing from 80 scaling to 320 to 80 scaling to 340. E damage increased from 22 scaling to 82 to 20 scaling to 100. Jayce is getting a small poke buff, with ranged Q damage increased by 5 for all ranks, while the bonus AD ratio is going up from 120% to 125%. Sion's W damage has been increased from 10 to 14% of target's health to just a flat 14% of target's health. The little dragon is getting a buff this patch, with increasing his Q damage by 5 at all ranks. Teemo will get into stealth much faster, as his passive got reduced from 0.25 seconds to 0.125 seconds.
Zed is one of the most strong assassins in the meta already. He is getting some good buffs too. His Q-based damage increases by 10 at all ranks. His E cooldown refund for W is now 3 seconds instead of 2 seconds. He is gonna be much more slippery than before.
First on our nerf list is Bel'Veth. Her attack range is getting reduced from 175 to 150. However, her R bonus attack range increased from 50 to 75. Brand's E gets hit with a nerf, with its base damage getting reduced by 5 at all ranks, and its cooldown going up by 1 second. Corki is causing a lot of problems in pro play recently, so Riot decided to nerf him in early game, decreasing his base health from 640 to 610. Coming up is Jax. His E cooldown got increased from 15 scaling to 9 seconds to 17 scaling to 9 seconds. Kindred's Q gets hit with 2 nerfs, with attack speed reduced from 35% to 30%, and attack damage ratio reduced from 0.75 to 0.65. Our deer was running around in the Rift last few days, so Riot decided to slow her a bit down. Her healing with the passive now got decreased a lot, from 33% to 15%. She was long overdue for a nerf, to be honest. Nidalee now is strong in the jungle, so Riot decided to take a little bit of her power. Cougar W damage changed from 60 scaling to 210 to 55 scaling to 190, but there will be 50% AD ratio now added. Cougar E damage reduced by 10 at all ranks. AP ratio is decreased from 45% to 40%, but AD ratio is increased from 40% to 70%. This patch isn't the best for Rumble.
His Q damage on minions was 55% at early game and 75% at late game, becoming 70% at all levels now. Rumble also got nerfed, taking down his Q damage on champions from 125 to 80 in early game, and from 185 to 180 in late game.
Tristana base mana increased from 250 to 350. Her Q mana cost now goes up from 0 to 50, and her W mana cost is reduced from 60 to 50. We consider this as a big nerf for Tristana's laning phase. Zyra's plant damage decreased from 16 scaling to 84 to 15 scaling to 75, but AP ratio increased slightly from 18% to 20. Monster bonus damage reduced from 60 scaling to 100 to 50 scaling to 100. Aurelion Sol got so much adjustments this patch, starting with increasing his base AD from 55 to 58. Q's initial mana cost, going up from 7.5 scaling to 12.5 up to 30 scaling to 50. However, persistent mana cost, every half second starting 0.5 seconds into the channel, changes into every quarter second starting 1.25 seconds into the channel. The W range changed from 1,200 units to 1,500, scaling to 1,900 units. Aurelion's E mana cost changed to 80 mana for all ranks. Aurelion's R damage AP ratio went up from 65% to 75%. Shockwave multiplier damage got reduced from 100% of falling star damage to 90% of falling star damage. Hecarim is getting some adjustments too. His health growth is increased from 99 to 106. His W duration got slightly down from 5 seconds to 4 seconds, but healing percentage increased from 20% to 25%, and now his W will be 14 CDR instead of 16 to 14 scaling. His ECDR changed from 18 flat to 20 seconds to 16 seconds, scaling which is going to help him a bit later in the game. Aurelia's passive attack speed now scales every level instead of increasing at levels 1, 3, and 7. AD per level decreased from 4 to 3.5. The cooldown you get for putting points in Aurelia's R is decreased to 1 second and 1.5 seconds for level 2 and 3 now.
Coming up next is Milio. His new passive now scales from 7% to 15%, which was 15% at all levels. So it is basically an early game nerf. Milio's Q got a huge buff too. It got a range buff from 1,000 to 1,200. Not only that, it also got a CDR buff from 12 seconds to 10 seconds. Q now refunds 50% of the mana cost upon hitting an enemy champion with it. W recast range now is so much larger. It can follow the ally champion, now up to 3,000 range, which is very useful. Milio's E got a nerf and a small buff too. The flat shield amount is now decreased from 60 to 45 at early game, and from 180 to 165 at late game. But the AP scaling of it got increased from 30% to 45%, which makes him a bit stronger at late game with more AP support items.
Here you go, guys. These are all the changes coming up in patch 14.14, released on 17th of July. Don't forget to visit 1v9.gg and level up your game. Thanks for watching, and see you all in the next one.